Welcome to the Third Win channel, and boy do we have a show for you today. Today we're doing Karate Kid characters plus Cobra Kai characters up to Season 4. We're doing a big tournament to see who is the toughest fighter of them all. So let's get straight into it. Our first pairing is Mr. Miyagi and Aisha, and I don't think I need to explain to you that Mr. Miyagi would win this fight. So let's get going. Mr. Miyagi. Next up, we got Nathaniel and Dimitri, and I think that, they've had a lot of the same teaching, but Dimitri has shown himself to be the tougher fighter. He's also bigger. I just see Dimitri winning this fight every single time. Moving on, we have Louis versus Stingray, and while earlier on, maybe Louis would take him, because Louis is not really a traditional fighter. He'll kind of do a fist fight or whatever, but Stingray, he's got Cobra Kai in him. He would beat up Louis, even though Louis would look at him and be like, oh, there's no way I can beat this guy up with my hands. No, Stingray's got it. He's learned enough at Cobra Kai to take on Louis. So Stingray for sure. Moving on, we got Chris versus Chosen, and let me just say this would be a very quick fight. Chosen would beat Chris for sure. Chris is still very new to Miyagi-Do. Moving on, we have Mike Barnes from the third Karate Kid movie versus Kyler, and oh my god, would Mike Barnes make Kyler run? He is terrifying. So yeah, Kyler's losing this. Kyler's not really all that great at karate yet, so definitely Mike Barnes. Moving on, we got Lapusso, or Anthony, against Eli, who just won the All Valley. So yeah, no question about it. Eli for sure. Then we got Brooks versus Kenny. And while there's an insane size difference, Kenny has shown that he can take down opponents bigger than him already. He's got serious Cobra Kai flowing through his veins, and I think that he would actually scare Brooks. We've seen him get quite scared. So yeah, and Eli easily beat Brooks in this scene. So, and there's a big size difference there. So I think Kenny for sure. Moving on, we got Sean against Daniel, and while Sean is big and tough, Daniel would just any kind of offense that Sean would show, through more of a regular fist fighting kind of a deal, Daniel would completely destroy Sean. Let's be for real here, the experience and everything. Moving on, we are heading on to the quarterfinals. On this side of the bracket, we have Dimitri versus Mr. Miyagi, and I think that Mr. Miyagi would be a great teacher to Dimitri. I think that I'd love to see that. But obviously, Dimitri's still learning about Miyagi-Do, whereas Mr. Miyagi literally created this style of Miyagi-Do, and yeah, Mr. Miyagi wins this fight. Moving on, we got Stingray versus Chosen. Very funny fight, but I have to give it immediately to Chosen. Let's move on here. Mike Barnes versus Eli. Now, this is really interesting. I think that like a Season 3, Season 2 Hawk is actually quite similar to Mike Barnes in many ways, kind of like the bully type. But if these two were to really have a fight in their prime, Mike Barnes is a proven champion, and Eli, while he's getting there, he still has so much to learn about the different styles. Like, he's starting to combine Miyagi-Do into style, and he has a talent for that aggressive style of fighting. But Mike Barnes, he still would have the edge, I think. Though Eli is getting closer. I think Eli has a very unique style of fighting. But no, Mike Barnes takes this one. He's scary. Moving on, we have Kenny versus Daniel. Kenny is just all too new to karate, and his style of fighting is still very primitive, and Daniel would just eat it up. He's beaten Cobra Kai many times before against opponents who are much tougher than Kenny. So Daniel wins here. Now we are moving on. Actually, I think this is the quarterfinal. No, we're the semifinals on this side of the bracket. So we got 32, so 16 on each side. We're going through one side of the bracket first. We got actually a fight that we've seen before, Mr. Miyagi versus Chosen. We saw this fight when Mr. Miyagi had to defend his hometown village and his house. So and there Miyagi took on Chosen plus a couple more. So Chosen style of fighting, although it probably evolved through the years, as we've seen in Cobra Kai, there's a lot more to it. But I guess it's hard to say. We haven't seen enough Chosen, but I think that Miyagi's defense evolved past Chosen's offensive style, so I think that Miyagi would win this fight. Although it'll be really interesting to see in Season 5 what Chosen has to bring to the table. So Miyagi wins here. And then we have another fight that we've seen before, Mike Barnes versus Daniel Larusso. And I think that in reality, Daniel might have gone a little lucky because Mike Barnes, he was getting a point, then he was getting a point deducted for doing a foul. Like he was basically just playing with Daniel. And if Mr. Miyagi didn't help Daniel out in that fight, Mike Barnes probably would have taken it. Nowadays, in their primes, Daniel could probably put up a very good fight against Mike Barnes, but who would win in a fight? I'm almost leaning towards Mike Barnes, but since the outcome of the fight was Daniel, and Daniel has grown so much stronger, so in his prime, and now he would probably be able to handle Mike Barnes. So I think that Daniel wins this. And then, of course, our final is Daniel versus Miyagi, which there is no contest, I think. Teacher, in this case, student does not surpass teacher. Mr. Miyagi just knows so much more. He knows the offensive style of the kind of Miyagi Do that Chosen knows as well. He just chooses not to use it. What does Daniel have? I guess he has some Cobra Kai in him. He has some Eagle Fang, but I don't think it's enough. I think that even now he still has room to grow, and I think Mr. Miyagi takes on Daniel. It's almost sad that Mr. Miyagi's on this list because he just destroys everybody, doesn't he? But Mr. Miyagi is our finalist on this side of the bracket. But now we're heading into the other side of the bracket where we got our first fight, Johnny and Penis Breath. And this fight would be fast. Johnny would kick Penis Breath in the face, and it would be over. Johnny's kicks are quite strong. Next up, we got Amanda and Tori. And while we saw some really interesting stuff between them in season 4 emotionally, I think in a fight, Amanda has no chance. She could try some kind of psychological stuff, but no. Tori wins this fight. She is the All Valley winner after all in season 4. Next, we got Miguel and Piper. I think Miguel is a much stronger fighter with much more learning. Piper still has some ways to go, although she is a strong fighter. She just doesn't have the experience yet. So definitely Miguel. Let's see. Matchup mode. Yeah, Miguel. Next, we got Bert versus Crease. Could you imagine this fight? Oh no. I don't think I need to explain anything. Poor Bert, man. That's just very unfortunate. Next up, we got Sato versus Bobby. And I think Bobby was Cobra Kai stronger back in the day than they were now? That's one of my questions. Were they better? And I have to say, I think they were quite a bit stronger back in the day than they are now overall. So I think Bobby was actually quite a good fighter. But that being said, Sato just has some incredible Miyagi-Do teaching. You could probably say that he's stronger than Daniel at fighting at this stage. So I think that we have to give this one to Sato, although it could be a really interesting fight and it could go the distance. Next, we got Robbie versus Tommy. And man, like these like old kind of Karate Kid versus Cobra Kai fights are really interesting to think about. You could almost see Robbie as a bit of a Tommy. I don't really see, maybe. I think that Robbie just has too much up his sleeve. He knows all the karate. He knows all the Cobra Kai moves. He even knows Miyagi-Do. So I think that Robbie's actually a stronger fighter here. Next up, we got Sam versus Devin. And I see so much potential in Devin, but she does not have the knowledge that Sam has and doesn't have the experience. So Sam takes this fight. Moving on, we got Dutch versus Terry Silver. And while Dutch would throw some... I think how this would go is Dutch would go all in and just try to strike first, but Terry would just hit him with one of the huge long leg kicks and it would be over. So yeah, Terry Silver. Next up, we got Johnny versus Tori. Man, interesting. Formerly student Tory. Yeah, I think Johnny just has the upper hand with experience. He knows Cobra Kai. He has some experience fighting Miyagi-Do and all this. I just think that Johnny, even obviously there's a size difference too, but it's beyond that. I think he's just much stronger, and he's developed his own style of Cobra Kai and Eagle Fang. I think he would really have the upper hand here. So I think Tori is eliminated. Next up, we got Crease versus Miguel. And Crease would strike serious fear into Miguel in a fight. And if I'm being honest with myself, I'm just thinking who'd win in this fight, and I really don't think Miguel would win. Like what Miguel has, he's got quite a few different styles, and he hits hard, and he uses a very straightforward style of fighting. He's very good at jump kicking and all these things, but I feel like Crease would have good control over this. I feel like he would really strike hard, and that would be too much for Miguel. So I actually see Crease winning this fight most of the time. Moving on, we got Sato versus Robbie, and I think because Robbie has all those different styles inside him, it would it would overwhelm Sato. He would be seeing things he'd never seen before, and I don't really how strong of a fighter is Sato really? It seems like he got the same training as Miyagi, but maybe less. Maybe he dropped off a little earlier on. It seemed like Miyagi was a stronger fighter than Sato, but I think that Robbie actually. I'm gonna go with Robbie on this one. I might be really wrong on this. So let me know in the comments if I get any of these really wrong. But I think that Robbie, with his different techniques, could actually take Sato. Next up, we got Sam versus Terry, and I'm sorry, Terry is terrifying. I think that Sam Sam is just a little bit in her fighting. I think she's a little bit too slow. Obviously, she's mostly defense, but I just I think that Terry would just when he strikes first, Sam would not. She would block a couple, but his quick hands would just get there or a kick. Yeah, I just see Terry winning this one. Next up, we got oh no, we got Johnny versus Crease. We've never actually seen this ever, and I think this would be a really actually no, we have in Cobra Kai we saw this fight, and it was kind of mixed. Like they both got some good hits. In terms of who I think would win this fight in their primes, it's tough to say. I think that there's a lot of mental stuff going on here as well. Who would I pick if I had to put my money on either Johnny or Crease? I think there's just too many mental games going on here. I feel like Crease would take Johnny, even though it's like as discussed in season 4, it's a bit of a weakness for Crease Johnny, but in a real fight, Crease would win this fight, I think. Next up, we got Robbie versus Terry, and Terry is Terry's scary, man. I get that Robbie is a very strong fighter. He's got different techniques, but I just haven't seen fighting as strong as Terry's. I don't know. Have we even ever seen him lose a fight? I think that his size also would really help against Robbie. Although in an ideal fight with some luck, I think Robbie could maybe take Terry. But no, I see Terry winning this one. And then we got Terry versus Crease, and you can see that Terry is Crease is Terry's weakness in the same way that Johnny is, whatever. And Crease has shown that he is much more fearless than Terry. But how would that play out in a fight? Man, it's really hard to say. I mean, if you look at the final, we know that Mr. Miyagi would beat Crease. We've seen that time and time again. We've seen that in the beginning of the second Karate Kid movie. But even in this fight, in their primes, I think Crease is much stronger mentally. But Terry is a stronger fighter, I think. He's just got a talent for it. He's just really strong. So I'm going to go with Terry here, especially after what we've seen in season 4. And then, lastly, we got a fight that I don't think we ever got to see, which was Terry against Mr. Miyagi. And who would win this fight? Well, this would be an ultimate fight between defense and offense, because Terry is an offense specialist, but somehow I think that Miyagi's defense is the perfect kind of defense for against a Terry. Like he could handle the fast feet, and he would be able to launch that counter move that would really, I think, one good hit against Terry, and he's phased, right? So I don't know. I think that Miyagi actually wins, especially in a tournament style battle or about points. I think that Miyagi would throw the right counter punches, and he would be able to take those really fast hits. So I think that Miyagi wins this, and part of me wishes I left the Miyagi out of this because Miyagi is just OP, right? But yeah, I think we had a lot of interesting fights, and we could just compare different fighters. And honestly, looking at this bracket, we see that the newcomers, the new generation, still have a long way to go. I think that the Karate Kid generation is just still a lot stronger in the fighting than the new generation, but it's going to be interesting to do this after a few seasons. I think then it's going to get really interesting. But yes, Miyagi is still our ultimate fighter here, and Terry Silver is a scary, scary figure for me. I think another interesting fighter here was Barnes. I think we could have put Barnes in here, and maybe Barnes would have no, no, there's no way. Mr. Miyagi is strong. Maybe next time we do this a list like this for season 5, we take Miyagi out. But this has been the Third Win channel. Thank you for watching. Let me know where I got it wrong. Who should have won these fights? Is there someone who should have won? Is Mr. Miyagi less strong than I think he is? Well, let me know. But thank you for watching. This has been the Third Win channel, and I'll see you guys all very soon for another video.